All right, it's episode 96 of the Wait for It Seattle podcast. This is Kevin. We got Daniel Salle as our special co-host on this beautiful Memorial Monday, coming from, is it Bozeman, Montana?
You got it.
How many different cities have you lived in Montana?
Just two. Here in Helena.
Just two?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How many cities do you think you could name in Montana?
Ooh, if I really took the time and just had a second to sit here and rattle them off. Yeah.
20 plus.
Yeah.
Did you ever do high school sports?
Yeah, that was my first radio job. It was at Capital High.
Capital High. So did you do high school football and high school basketball?
Yeah, so my senior year of college, I ended up doing high school basketball, and then that first fall after I graduated, I actually did football, but as a color analyst.
Okay, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So that's why Daniel's voice sounds a lot more professional than me. So we decided Brian's taking the week off, but we're going to give you some Mariners chatter and then actually tap into Daniel's expertise or his interest in the NBA playoffs. But before we get started, I don't know if you saw this news, man. When's the last time you went to Wild Waves, Enchanted Village?
Man, I had a good run of birthday parties the summer after I finished 6th grade, I think. Either the summer after I finished 5th grade or the summer after I finished 6th grade. I went to like 4 or 5 different birthday parties there. But I think that was the last time. That would have been, give or take, 2008, maybe 2009. It's been a while.
Did you hear that they're close? This is the last season they're open.
We'll pour one out for the Timberhawk roller coaster.
Pour one out for that was the first time I had Dippin' Dots in my life. Better question. I bet you we've been there together. I just can't rack my brain about when I'm sure I've gone with your family. I'm like 99% sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sure one of your brothers is going to be able to text us after and tell us
it'll be David.
When exactly it was. Yeah.
David will know.
Okay. So let's get that out of the way. I don't know if there's any other pop culture questions that I really, really need to cover with you.
Nothing about like reality TV or anything like that.
Oh, God. I know. And we have the Mariners on the background. Spoiler alert. They'll probably win, but let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
There's all these topics that I want to talk about, but the hottest topic right now is what happened today. The piggybacking. So context, Bryce Miller's was hurt for a long part of the season. And we talked about this a little in last week's episode, but basically he comes back healthy. Everyone else is healthy. And Emerson Hancock, who replaced Bryce Miller in the rotation, is actually one of the better pitchers in the American League right now. So the solution that the Mariners came up with is this thing called piggybacking, which is basically there's 2 pitchers involved, Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo. Okay. So the first time around, Luis Castillo went, or was it Bryce Miller? Bryce Miller went 6 or 7 innings. Then Luis Castillo
I believe 5
came in.
and
Do you remember?
2/3. Yeah, because I think he had a no-hitter through 5 and ended up going 5 and 2/3. And then they brought in Ferrer to finish the inning and then gave Castillo the next one clean.
Okay. And that didn't
Maybe it was 6 and 2/3. I could be off.
Yeah.
They were talking about it on the game an hour ago.
So the main criticism after that game was that, okay, Castillo went in, was pitching really well, but then ran into some trouble, and then they entered Andres Munoz in the game as the closer in the 9th inning with like 2 runners on that Castillo led on. And it was a 1-0 ball game. So the context is important here. And the criticism was, why did you keep Castillo in? You should have just put Munoz in like a regular game. Like that's what he does. Started the 9th inning, shut him down. But he was put in this weird position where there were 2 runners on. Asked about it after the game, and Dan Wilson basically said like they were looking at pitch counts, like they wanted to give Castillo a certain amount of pitches, and people weren't happy about it. And the Mariners lost, which makes things worse. Okay, fast forward. Yeah, so you agree, right?
Agree with what specifically?
I guess I guess just my version of the events. Like people
Your
were
assessment
upset.
there? Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree with
Okay.
that. Yeah, I think people were upset, definitely.
Okay. So especially because they lost, right? It would have been
Yeah.
different. Like then tonight is a little different. So tonight, the Mariners are pretty comfortably ahead, 5-0. Luis Castillo starts. He goes 4 innings, lights out, pitches lights out. Great. Okay. Is pulled after 4 innings for Bryce Miller.
58 pitches, I
And
believe, is where he was at.
how many pitches?
58 or 68.
58 or 68. And what was significant here is there's a clip that's circulating of Dan Wilson talking to Castillo, and Castillo looks pissed, which I would be too. Like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, I'm pitching really well, right? I've pitched now, this is 2 games in a row where I haven't really done anything wrong as a starting pitcher, and you pulled me. And my takeaway from this is that, and the Mariners are going to win here, but everyone's going to be talking about this now that there's like a video clip of him being upset. I'm interested to see what Dan Wilson says after the game here. He's probably going to be vague and not really address the issue, but maybe. But if I was a reporter in that press room after the game, I would say, why is it that Bryce Miller gets to go 6, 7 innings? And why does Luis Castillo get to go 4 in his? When Bryce Miller was on a roll, then you pulled him after a certain amount. Now Luis Castillo only gets 4 innings. It might be a pitch count thing. I don't know, but it looks like, I think from Castillo's perspective, it's like, this is uneven. Like, this isn't fair. Like, this is, you guys put us in this situation, and now you're applying like this arbitrary thing where like you're pulling me after 4 innings. What did I do wrong? So this is a long way of saying, like, what do the Mariners do here? Like, do they keep on? I think there's a couple options here. Do you keep on doing what you're doing? Do you tweak this piggybacking thing? Or do you just stop it and kick Castillo out of the rotation permanently?
Well, a couple things. First, I think what the answer will probably be after the game is that the next inning, the top of the order was coming up for the A's. And
Yeah.
Castillo hasn't been quite good enough this year, maybe, to be the one out of these two with the longer leash. And maybe that's not fair. But like I mean, the numbers speak for themselves on him this year. And I'm not saying he's necessarily been bad. I think it's a long season and he's shown that he's cut out for it. But at the same time, like, you have a guy in Bryce Miller who's pitched twice now since he's gotten healthy, and he's looked really good. And he's probably going to be the one awarded the longer leash out of these two. And again, it's probably not fair, but with the top of the order coming up and a clean inning to start, and Luis has looked good and gotten himself out of some jams, probably not the worst time to do it. But at the same time, a big talking point with all of this is managing these guys mentally. And clearly that's not something that may have landed well with Luis Castillo. And he probably has the right to be upset. But that, if I had to guess, the top of the order coming up in the next inning is probably the explanation that we're going to get from Dan Wilson.
Yeah. And I think that the hard part about this is all, like, I think as a manager, like, you want Luis Castillo to be a great starting pitcher. You want him and for him to be that and to return to that. And I think there's this, maybe I'm lying to myself, but I still think like he has a chance to be that. I mean, and Brian and me were talking about this, but basically it was like, I think he's had a long enough chance to prove that he's good enough. And most people were like, he's not that good anymore, even after the past two outings. And I think that's kind of where, like, I think this is that kind of determines the path, right? Like, do we believe, or more importantly, do the Mariners believe that Luis Castillo can be an effective starting pitcher, right? To be an asset, right? Because that's what matters. It's like not if he's like average, or like, is he going to be better than your fifth starter, whether that be Hancock or Bryce Miller. I think that's like what you have to decide. If you don't think he has it in him, like, I'm kind of leaning toward stash him in the bullpen and then trade him.
Yeah,
like, and maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's what they're just looking at it like, we can start him and it looks like he's a starting pitcher, but really he's just like a 4-inning arm. Like, that's how we're going to treat him.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. And you mentioned earlier when you were kind of setting the stage on all this, the idea of continuing to tweak this. And I think as long as they're going to commit to doing it, there's going to be tweaks, because this is not something that is very common. And it's also something that's new within this organization and this specific team. And you also have the aspect of what the game's going to present. It's easy if Luis Castillo pitches tonight and comes out and gives up 4 runs in the first 3 innings and gets up above 60 pitches. And it's like, all right, now we'll turn it over to Bryce and see if he can, shut it down and play damage control while our offense tries to catch up. But that's not what happened tonight.
Yeah, so
And
then
it's
that's
definitely
like,
not what
if it's like,
happened in the last start either.
don't you want like a longer, like, don't you want to give Castillo those reps if the team is up? I mean, maybe not. Maybe you don't even want the game to be close, right? Like, I'm of the position of like, if you're up by at least 4 runs, then ride your guy out. Let him face the top of the order. I don't know. Like, why? What's the point of like? I don't know. It's just like sometimes you do so much to please that it actively harms, right? And I think that's. I don't know if you think that's what's happening here, but like, it's a good problem to have. But now we're letting this good problem turn into a problem that's like harming both of the dudes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
mean, I
there's
don't
going to
know.
be a certain aspect of this that we're going to have to be uncertain on for a while, because I don't imagine a lot of this stuff coming to light until probably long after the season ends, when the dust is settled and people are a little more willing to speak on these type of internal things. I'm not quite sure how to read it, but it seems like all things indicate that this is a little bit of a frustrating situation for both of these guys to be in, both of these guys being the 2 pitchers we've been talking about. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think there's any right or wrong way necessarily to do this. I just feel like it's kind of creating more questions than answers. And I think there'll be nights where they do it, and there's probably a pretty easy answer right there in front of your face, depending on how the pitch counts shake out and how the game's going. But that's just not how baseball always goes. It's not always going to be that way. And then you find yourself in the middle of a 9th inning with 2 runners on, and you either have to decide to let Luis Castillo work through it or bring in your closer to come through out of the stretch. It's just not. It's not going to be a perfect science, is my thought on this whole thing. And it's also going to be something that is going to be learned as we go, with a manager who's still, all things considered, is new to this whole thing being managing in general, but also with it being this unique situation.
Yeah. So that's like the big issue right now. But I want to zoom out, because I do think that Mariners, especially after last night's loss, or was it yesterday's loss? Like, people were upset because
they've
like
been upset for a long time.
I think yesterday was a culmination of like all the things that have made people upset about this team, like, have come, like, that were apparent in the game. And like the biggest thing was like the JP Crawford overthrow is like a great example. Like, also like losing a series to like a subpar team, another great example, like another reason why people were very upset. But again, to set the context, Mariners have a 3-game set against the A's. The A's are in first, the Mariners are in second place. Mariners are going to win tonight. Randy Arozarena just hit a home run. They're up 9-1. They're going to the bottom of the 9th here. And so they'll be 1.5 games back behind the A's when you're listening to this. They have 2 more games. They could be in first place if they win these 2 games, right? And you wouldn't know by judging like the temperature of social media. I'm still of I'm always on like, I do think there's overreaction. I really do. And it sucks to see people, like, I do think that there's certain people that cover this team that kind of stoke the overreaction. In reality, like, if they win 2 games, and maybe they won't, and maybe it'll all be justified, but like, it's just like there's 162 games, and it just seems like the back and forth is like, oh my god,
a little
this
bit
team's not
exhausting.
that bad. Yeah, like someone was trying to tell me that the roster had holes in it, and I just completely disagree. I mean, there's holes, but this isn't like, I think the wording they used, it was a flawed roster, and it really drove me off the wall. And like, they were going into the same tropes of like not spending in free agency and like all these things. Like, yeah, like it would be great if we could be the Dodgers, but we're not. Like, they signed Josh Naylor. They've had Jerry Dipoto's ripped off great trades, had some bad trades, but that's what being a general manager is. Like, some trades work out, some don't. I don't know if you saw Jared Kelenic got DFA'd. Like, that was a
Yeah.
great trade to get value for him. Like, they traded away Harry Ford, got a great reliever. Like, there's been stuff that's worked. And I just think that people are, and Brian was saying this last week, people are traumatized. Like, they're just like immediately like, it's like, dude, we made the playoffs. We were a couple outs away. Like, the roster isn't completely flawed. Like, some things haven't worked out. And this is my question for you is, what's been your biggest disappointment this season?
Well, for starters, this may be more of an ego thing, but I was really excited when we brought in Rob Refsnyder. I thought it made a ton of sense. I thought it was a perfect fit, and it's worked out very, very poorly. And it's about probably time to cut ties with him. But I think the thing for me is, I think myself, the people on Twitter, whoever's listening, like, we've all been paying attention to this team for a very long time now. And sometimes I get on and I scroll and I think these people haven't been through a baseball season before. Kind of piggybacking off what you were saying there.
Well, what this has been what the Mariners have been. Like,
yeah, this isn't anything we haven't seen before. But I think also kind of to add on here, I do feel like we have the right guys, and that's what keeps me coming back. I mean, I sat in the ballpark all 3 games last weekend against the Padres and watched us get swept, and we looked bad. But at the same time, I'm just like, I look out on that field, and I'm like, I love these guys, man. Like, could you imagine if Julio Rodriguez played somewhere else? Like, that would make me really upset. I just, you look around, I just think that we have a good team, and maybe there's some things philosophically that haven't been popular, and I understand all those frustrations, and I don't want to overlook that. But at the end of the day, I think this is a team that is very capable. And in time, I believe we're going to see that. Not to mention, they're all just great guys to root for. I mean, they just all seem like good dudes, and I know people have their gripes with JP Crawford right now, and I get it too, but I still love the guy. And I would prefer to not see him make throwing errors to first base. I would really like for that to stop. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think we're at the point in the year yet where it's like, fire everybody. I don't see it. And the heat on the front office doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. I think big picture, this front office has done a really nice job. And I think last October was a testament to that. And I think we're going to see we're going to see the vision for this team at some point. It's going to probably take a couple of moves to fine tune things as we go along here, especially getting into the summer. And I don't know if you listened, Dipoto was on with Buster Olney the other day and was talking about, he's not so sure what things are going to look like at the trade deadline just because so many teams in the American League are in the mix right now. Nobody's really separated themselves. So where are the sellers going to come from? And there's still time for that to work itself out. But at the same time, that gave people another reason to be upset. And it's like, when have we gone through a season without, trying to make the roster better if we're in this contending window? It's happened every year where last year was obviously the height of that, going out and getting Gino and Naylor in the span of a week. That was about as good as it gets for a trade deadline, but there's going to be something, and maybe it won't work out. I'm not going to be the one to cast my prediction there yet, because I'm not really in the mode where I know who's going to be on the market. But at the end of the day, I still look up and down the lineup, and I think there's some guys who maybe don't need to be out there as much as they have been, but I think those things will take care of themselves. And I feel like they usually do. I think that's going to happen again. If this continues with Refsnyder, they're not going to hang on to him till September. That's not going to happen if this continues with him. If he's going to keep hitting 100 and striking out all the time, they're not going to keep him around that long. And Cal Raleigh's going to come back at some point, and everyone's going to think it's going to be that 0 for 34 stretch again, but I don't believe that's going to happen either.
Over 70, I
mean, it's just like, let's trust some of these guys to work their way into it. It's like, now that Julio's having a good early start to the season, the focus shifts on all these other little things, and I just have a lot of faith still at this point that it's going to be all right. I still think we have a roster that can contend in the American League.
I mean, at the end of May, like you're a game back in the wild card, right? I don't know what it is now. I don't know the standings, but you're still in competition mode. At the AL West, there's no juggernaut, and honestly, the Mariners have gone on hot streaks like every season. When
More
it's going to
specifically,
be,
every summer.
yeah, every summer. We don't know when that's going to be. Maybe it doesn't happen, but my bet is it's going to happen. It always happens, and I just think that in general, I agree with you. I think that people they've pushed the panic button, but I think it might be worth it to just kind of take some deep breaths and let the season play out a little more. I know we're 2
And we're
months
also
down.
like,
I know they haven't reached expectations, but
I mean,
it's
we're
2
2 years
months.
removed from us this
Yeah.
time of year having a 10-game lead on the division, and that year we ended up not making the playoffs. Like these, you just have to kind of let things ride out a little bit.
Yeah.
And once we get past the All-Star break, then maybe we can have some different conversations. But at this point, I don't think there's any reason to just abandon what's going on here if they don't make like some serious changes. I just don't think we're there. Now there's, like I said, there's things that definitely should be addressed, but it's not a whole overhaul of the entire franchise. That's not
Yeah.
what we're looking at here.
Speaking of franchises, super well-run franchise in American sports is the San Antonio Spurs
Great segue.
organization. I don't know if you subscribe to the conspiracy theories that, they were just handed Victor Wembanyama, but that's without saying that there's a very important figure on the sideline for Seattle folks, and that's Mitch Johnson, O'Day alum. Do you know the year he graduated? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, 2005.
2005. Do you know if he's already made the Wall of Fame?
He has, yes.
He has. By the way, who's your favorite on that wall?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Favorite on the wall. Well, I mean, it's the easy answer. Coach Kohler's my favorite on the wall, but as far as athletes
he's
go,
like a living legend. He's like a Coach K. He's like the Coach K of, well, actually, it's either him or Bethea of Seattle high school hoops, right? Like, I don't know. Well,
I
he's
think
high school football. Yeah, go ahead.
for athletes, I mean, I'm trying to think of who's gone in over the last few years that I actually like remember watching. I mean, Taylor Mays is probably the answer, or Nate Burleson. Like those two guys they stand out. Once Miles goes in, since I was in his class, like that's probably the answer. But I also like DeAndre Yedlin is someone who I really am a big fan of, and he just got on.
Yeah.
So,
so you have to graduate from O'Day. So Paolo Banchero is not going to be on there, right?
He graduated from O'Day.
He graduated? I thought he went to a prep school. He transferred to a prep school his final year.
No, they didn't play that year because of COVID, but he didn't transfer.
Okay, so he graduated. Okay, there you go. Okay, so he'll probably be on it soon.
Absolutely, it's got to be 10 years, so he'll be on there in 2030 or whatever.
Do they put commentators on there, or just athletes?
I think just athletes and coaches, and if they get to that point, then great. But I got a long ways to go, man.
Yeah, Rick Riz is retiring. I know you're not probably working for the Mariners next season, but
no, I'm not.
Give it another 50 years and maybe you'll be ready.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so Mitch Johnson, let's talk about it because I think it's really interesting, his path. But there was a little circumstance that got him there, but he was at the right place at the right time, like replacing Greg Popovich, which is like, Coach Pop is like, he's on the Pantheon, right? Like he's on the Mount Rushmore. Like Phil Jackson is up there. I think you'd probably throw Steve Kerr from our generation, maybe Spoelstra. Anybody else? Am I missing anybody?
Pat Riley. I mean,
Pat Riley. Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily our generation, but I mean, as far as the all-time, I mean, there's people I'm not thinking of from a long time ago, but Popovich
what's impressive about
exactly.
Popovich like won with, he won. Obviously, Tim Duncan was his guy, but before Tim hit his prime, he had the David Robinson, kind of a young Tim Duncan, won a championship with that team, and he didn't. It's like the Spurs had great players, but it didn't. He never it didn't seem like the super team was necessitated. And maybe that's a different answer. Maybe like the modern NBA, like, you need the super team, but he just had dudes. He got them to buy into their roles really well. And like maybe I'm underselling Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker and how freaking good
You
they
probably
were.
are.
Yeah, I probably are. I probably am, but I mean, no one's gonna argue. Like Greg Popovich is one of the greatest coaches of all time, and so Mitch
Without a doubt.
Johnson, yeah, fills his shoes. I mean, what do you think's made him so successful?
Well, I was home last week and went up and got teriyaki from my favorite spot up there at Yoshino's and popped into Coach Kohler's office just to say hello and talk to him for a little while. And we talked about Mitch. And um, he, like, the way Coach Kohler talked about him, you'd think the guy's never done a bad thing in his life. Like, it just seems like he's such a classy dude. And, well, of course he is. He went to O'Day, but he also went to Stanford and was a great point guard for them when the Lopez twins played there. And he's just, the way people talk about him, whether it's people in the NBA space, people at O'Day, people around Seattle, it just seems like nobody's got a bad thing to say about the guy. And he just seems
Yeah,
like a really graceful leader, a very humble guy. And you can tell the way, when they pan over to the sidelines, it just seems like he's got really good rapport with his players and they respect him and want to hear what he has to say. But you don't just, it takes a special kind of dude and a special kind of coach to be handed those reins. And I mean, they clearly trusted him and he's done a really good job. And you look up and down their roster right now, and yeah, they have one of the best players in basketball, but around him, they have a cast of, like you just talked about with some of the old Spurs teams, some very good
yeah,
players, and some of them are more than role players. De'Aaron Fox has been an all-star. Dylan Harper is a guy who maybe if Cooper Flagg didn't exist, he could have been a rookie of the year. He was that good.
yeah,
They have guys. Steph Castle was the rookie of the year last year, but
yeah,
they, I think he's definitely done a good job of getting the most out of what they have. And the buy-in is very obvious watching them play and watching the way they defend, watching the way they buy into whatever they're being told to do. It just seems like he's got them playing the way they need to be, especially this time of year. But I mean, you don't win 60 games by accident at the same time.
yeah. One cool thing, I was doing some background research before we jumped on. He was part of that Friends of Hoop squad in the mid
Yeah. It's the
2000s.
famous picture, man.
Yeah. So Spencer Hawes, Martell Webster, John Brockman, Micah Downs, who went to Gonzaga, had a great career and then went overseas. And then
We went to Kansas first.
Yeah, he went to Kansas and then transferred to Gonzaga. I forgot about that. By the way, people have been going to Kansas from the Seattle area for a while now. That's why I don't know if we claim Tyron Stokes as like a Seattle player, kind of like the Michael Porter thing. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It feels weird to call him like a Seattle player, but these dudes did go to Seattle, played a year in high school basketball in Seattle, so I do think they're part of the story. But it just feels, it doesn't feel like these guys I'm listing off. And then Isaiah Thomas, I believe, was in the backcourt with Mitch for the Friends of Hoop team. He's not in the picture, but that is quite the squad. I mean, that's right there. Out of those guys I mentioned, Micah Downs is the only guy that didn't play in the NBA, and that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you look at
Yeah,
Seattle basketball. I mean, those are some of the biggest names, and Mitch fits right in there with all those guys to me. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
especially the way he excelled as a college player and as a high school player. I know his style is not like some of the guys we normally talk about. He doesn't have the stuff that kind of jumps out at you when you're watching like someone like Michael Porter Jr. or Shaquan
yeah.
Aaron or Kevin Porter. These guys are flying around dunking the ball, but like they all call him
Cerebral is,
Maestro.
yeah.
Like,
I call him cerebral. Like that's how I remember him playing at O'Day. Was he a lefty? Am I making
I
that
don't
up?
think so. I mean,
Okay.
I
All
watched
I
him at
remember,
Stanford a handful of times, and
yeah.
I couldn't tell you this
I
far
remember
removed.
watching him at the state tournament, and I remember going to games, going to the O'Day prep games, and watching him play, and just being impressed about how, like, the game slow. He's one of those guys, the game slows down for him. He commands the game, didn't turn the ball over, and he just made the players around him better. I don't know if plus or minus was around back, that stat was there at that point, but I think he would have definitely had a lot of plus. So, do you think he pulls it out against the Thunder?
Man, I want him to, like, so badly.
Everyone in
I
Seattle
just
does, right?
correct. But I like, until I'm not gonna pick against the Thunder until I see them get beat.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's obvious through 4 games, they're all knotted up, and there's been kind of haymakers thrown both ways. And I feel like the Thunder's team is really good now with some of the recent injuries to them. That changes things, but at the same time, I feel like I gotta take the Thunder until I see them get knocked off, as much as it probably won't be popular with the people listening. But I'm still sitting on my couch watching every game and cheering for the Spurs, and mostly cheering for Mitch Johnson, because there's something about the way this is all set up. And I know it's completely by accident, but you have a guy who's grown up in Seattle, went to O'Day, and is now coaching the Spurs. And his dad's an NBA champion with the Sonics back in the 70s. And he's coaching the game against our old team in the Western Conference Finals with Jamal Crawford on the broadcast. The amount of Seattle references and stuff, like hearing Jamal Crawford on the game the other night talking about losing to Mitch Johnson in the state tournament. And then he made a comparison. He likened the Spurs defense to the Legion of Boom. And there was a text I sent to one of my group messages. I said, I just had a tear of teriyaki sauce roll down my eye. I was so happy. Like the amount of ties especially with these Sonics expansion rumors kind of looming in the background.
Yeah.
I love seeing anytime the Seattle basketball scene gets its shine on a national level, I'm happy.
Yeah, and shout out to Jamal Crawford. So if you don't know this, his son JJ Crawford is one of the top 2029 basketball recruits in the country. Has several offers, including one from Kansas. Like it, unsurprisingly, JJ stars for Seattle Rotary, and it's the AAU circuit right now. And Jamal is the coach of the team, and so it's creating this situation.
He referenced that on the broadcast too.
Yeah, where he's like going to go do the broadcast, and then the next morning traveling to go coach his son's youth AAU basketball team, like a premier basketball team, right? Like this guy's doing it all. And there's actually some noise, and Jamal himself has confirmed this. He's considering going to coach at Kentucky as an assistant coach. And that, he's going to have to weigh that with, whether he wants to continue coaching JJ at Rainier Beach. They've obviously just won the state championship. They're probably going to repeat if everyone's back. But, Jamal Crawford, like for someone, he's kind of like, there's no one like him, obviously.
Yeah.
But just like this impact that he's had. And
he's
our
ambassador, man.
Yeah. And he's been doing it for so long. Like, just been the good guy for so long. Like, he's been doing the pro-am. Like, I would go to these pro-ams, dude, back before, like, when I was in high school, when it was at the Boys and Girls Club on Rainier, watching them. I watched when Brandon Roy came back from injury. There's a fun article you could find. I took, like, video clips. It was the first time he's holding a basketball in, like, a year or something. But he's been doing it for such a long time. And now that his son is here, and everyone loves him. Like, it's not just like Seattle, it's like everyone, and it's so genuine.
It's the best. I mean, so he's one of those guys too. He played for a lot of teams and was really good, but never really was like the villain, never really had to be. And I think he's just kept such a good reputation from being such a classy guy. And I'm so happy that he's on TV now, because one, he's got a great voice for it. And two, he's just like, I like when guys like him are on there, because he's not piling on people. He's just giving people their flowers when he sees good things. He'll give his thoughts, but he's not there to take anyone down. It seems like the vibe with him and Reggie Miller on there, on these NBC playoff broadcasts, has been like so good and so pleasant. And I love seeing him. Like, I love that the whole basketball world gets to watch and hear from him, because he's someone that, like, it's such a positive reflection of the basketball world when people like Jamal Crawford are out there talking about the sport.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just finish it this way. I'd love to do this with you. let's draft Seattle. Let's starting 5. This is how we end.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have to go back and forth. You pick someone and you're going to have a starting 5 and you tell me why you picked that person. Just really briefly, and then we can riff raff. Then I can give a line or two on that guy that you just picked. But I'll give you the first overall pick, and we'll just go back and forth.
Only number 1
Okay.
pick to ever come out of Seattle.
Okay, so is he your power forward, or is he?
We'll see how the rest of the team shakes out. Probably.
Okay, so
I
go.
feel like some guards are going to get thrown around though, and it's going to come up on us real quick. So maybe he ends up being the 5-man. But you got a guy who was the number 1 pick of the draft and played in the Final Four. I think.
Yeah.
He's among like maybe another 1 or 2 guys who have been on his level getting recruited out of high school. So he's number 1 pick, and he went to O'Day. So bonus points.
Okay, so I'll go Jamal Crawford, Rainier Beach, South Seattle, for all the reasons we just said. 6th man of the year multiple times, but he's in my starting lineup.
Yeah, and best pro career out of any of these guys. I mean, I think someone like Paulo will probably catch him. He's already been an all-star, but I mean, Jamal was in the league for like 20 years and still breaking dudes' ankles in like the bubble. He's 40 years old in the bubble, just doing his thing. So I like that pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Get him out there. All right. Gosh. It's hard for me because probably the next 2 best players or best like recruited high school players are the 2 guys we already mentioned who only played in Seattle for a year. So maybe do we leave them out? Do we include them in this? I don't know.
I think let's just say that Michael Porter and Tyron Stokes are out. Just because.
Okay.
Let's set an arbitrary rule of like you had to
That'll
play
allow some deeper
seasons,
cuts too. I like
2
that.
seasons in high school. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna take my favorite, and that's Peyton Siva. All-time favorite.
That's a good one. Who played a little NBA, I think, for the Pistons.
He did, yeah. National champion at Louisville.
Yeah. And he's a coach there now, too. So
yes, he is.
He's an assistant coach. Yeah, I remember watching him beat Seattle Prep pretty bad in the 2008 state tournament. That Franklin team was unstoppable.
They were so good. And shout out Jason Kerr, man.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go Brandon Roy. I'll say I'll have Crawford at the 1, and then I'll put Roy. Or I think they're, you could switch them. I think both of them could bring the ball up, but I'll go with B.
Gross
Roy.
oversight on my part, not taking
Garfield
Brandon Roy.
High School. Yeah. Didn't have the longevity, but like when Kobe Bryant says you have no weakness, like I mean, that's pretty.
And I mean, he's first team All-American at UW. He's probably the only first team All-American we've ever had at UW.
Yeah.
So that's a great pick. And again, I picked with my heart and didn't think to take B. Roy. So that's on me. All right, I'm gonna go.
You can go out of Tacoma too, dude. I think that counts.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go. I'm hearing you on Tacoma, but I'm gonna keep it in Seattle, and I'm gonna go Nate Robinson. Sorry,
okay.
Nate Robinson.
Yeah.
Because imagine him and Siva out there like throwing alley-oops to each other.
In
like,
your
that's
head,
fun
is
basketball.
he the most athletic person in your? Would you agree with me that like he arguably is like the most athletic person ever to come out of the state of Washington?
I think he definitely is in that conversation.
Yeah. In our life, would you say in your lifetime?
I mean, what he went, he he won like 3 dunk contests. I mean, he was a starting cornerback on a Division I college football team,
and he
I don't know how good that UW team was.
I think he's a state champion hurler too. Maybe I'm making it up, but I'm pretty sure he is.
I'm pretty sure you're right. But I mean, and then just like kind of quietly had a really long NBA career too. Like,
yeah. Okay, so you go with Nate Robb.
Yeah, it's my point guard.
Do I go with Marjan Beauchamp as like my tall dude? Does he count?
He does count, but like I'd say no.
Okay, I take him back. I want to go with Brockman. I want Brockman. I want my undersized forward. Have you ever looked up his NBA highlights? So great. Played for the Kings and Bucks.
What about the trick shot video?
Yeah, for the Bucks.
I love John Brockman. That's my favorite Husky basketball player ever.
That's
like
great.
Unquestionably.
Yeah. So I'll go.
Oh man,
the Loch Ness monster, the Brock Ness monster.
That's a great pick. So you got him and B. Roy and Jamal Crawford. I got Paulo and Nate and Peyton Siva. I'm glad I gave Peyton Sivas proper recognition here because he deserves it.
Yeah.
Man, I'm trying to think, go down the list in my head of the teams.
What position are you looking for?
Well, I need another guard and I need another forward, and I don't really care what. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stay on the theme of kind of the type of players I've gotten up to this point and the wow factor here. I'm gonna go Zach LaVine.
Nice. Bothell High. I think that's a great pick. Another dunk champion. Yeah.
Yep.
Nate Robinson
dunking the
and
ball.
LaVine just throwing dunks to each other. Okay. So, God, what do I have? 2 guards. I have a power forward. I have a wing spot. I think I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to go with Marvin Williams.
I like that.
Played 15 seasons in the league from Bremerton. Kind of underrated. Averaged 10 points in his career. 10.2, 5.2 rebounds, and an assist.
If he would have been drafted 10 years later, man, he would have made a lot of money.
And
he probably still did, but
played 15 years in the league, dude. That's a long time. His best seasons were early on. Third season averaged about 15 points for the Hawks. I think Crawford might have been on that team. Okay, go ahead.
All right. I'll throw Apollo as the 5-man here, and for the 4, I'll go Jaden McDaniels.
There you go.
He's just been so good since he got in the league.
Yeah,
I know his year at UW didn't pan out the way anyone wanted it to, but he's been so good in the league and is even better when the T-Wolves get to the playoffs.
Yeah. And Anthony Edwards, his teammates, fun to watch. You know, they got LeBron, but we got Jaden McDaniels. I think that was the
KD.
So, KD, yeah, they got KD.
They got KD, we got Jaden
McDaniels. I think I'll just end and I'll, go with Spencer Hawes as my center. Ahead of his time, shot 3-pointers.
I wasn't going to pick him.
7-footer, you couldn't do it. He's a prep grad. So
I wasn't going to take a prep guy.
There's an all-time. We did snub some guys. A lot of great guards. I didn't hear Jason Terry. I watched
Jason Terry as a pro, but not as a college or high school player. I mean, Aaron Brooks is another guy.
That's another guy.
Abdul Gaddy, very highly recruited player.
Corey Kispert's in the league right now.
Yeah, he's big time.
DeJounte Murray, Jalen Noel, Gary Payton II's made a name for himself. Although does he count? Does Gary Payton II count? Probably not.
I don't think so.
Kevin Porter Jr. There's lots of dudes. Yeah.
A lot of guys who have stuck around in the league for kind of a long time now. I mean,
Rodney Stuckey. We didn't even pick Isaiah Thomas. Yeah. Avery Bradley. We could go on forever.
I almost picked Isaiah Thomas, but I went with Nate, and I think there's some childhood nostalgia there of UW being a number 1 seed and Nate Robinson's dunk on SportsCenter top 10 and that whole deal.
Shout out Mike Jensen, man. Shout out Mike Jensen. Shout out Trey Simmons, although he's the Ducks coach right now.
Yeah, we played Oregon this year, and I was sitting there at the table before the game getting set up, and I was just like, "That's Trey Simmons.
That's a legend right there."
And Trey Simmons is he's one of my all-time favorite Husky players too. I mean, another guy ahead of his time could really shoot it, and I was like, nobody on our team or on our staff right now, as I sit here at Oregon, has any idea how much I love this guy. Didn't go say hi though. I should have.
Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Trey Simmons, man, we just dropped some serious Seattle basketball nostalgia on our listeners.
And there's going to be we're going to get a text, and there's going to be someone we didn't even mention who
Will Conroy
probably should have been. Yeah, Will Conroy's another one. I mean, they're everywhere.
Well, dude, we ended where we usually end, and it's talking about the glory days, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I appreciate you.
People want to know why I love basketball so much. This is why. This is what we grew up with.
Yeah, we can talk. I mean, you want to talk one thing about, you want to go straight to my heart. Seattle high school basketball. Nothing beats it.
It's a basketball town, man. Bring back the Sonics.
Yep. Daniel, thanks for joining us. I know, this isn't your last appearance. You've made reoccurring. I'm interested to see the episodes you've appeared. I think this is your 3rd or 4th appearance on the Weight.
This is number 3.
Yeah, 3 times out of 100, man, that's 3% of our episode. Once we get to 100, you're gonna be up there as a recurring guest. So, Daniel, thank you for taking the time. Everyone else, thanks for listening. Please tell a friend, and we'll see you next week. Go Mariners, and maybe we'll have another piggyback to talk about.
And go Spurs.
Go Spurs. Boo Thunder. All right, see everyone next week.